Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, which today is all about the rumor mill. Now, a real doozy is out there, and that is that Hugh Jackman has been offered $100 million by 20th Century Fox to play the Wolverine 4 more times in 4 more X-Men films. No specifications if they're standalone Wolverine films, X-Men films, or both. And the rumor further speculates that Hugh Jackman is on the fence about this, because even though it's $100 million, he doesn't know if he wants to lock himself down into a particular role for 4 more films. So the big question, obviously, is this rumor true? I'm going to have to say no, and that's for a couple of reasons. The first one is the obvious one of who would say no to $100 million. That's ridiculous. Guaranteed $100 million. This isn't even saying that it's factoring in gross participation. I mean, that would be just crazy, especially for Hugh Jackman, who isn't getting that kind of payday from anywhere else and isn't likely to. And he also is somebody who clearly understands the importance of Wolverine to his career. He produces these movies. So I think that Jackman, if offered the chance, would want to lock himself down for basically $100 million and 4 more successful films. So I think he would definitely say yes. I don't think he would have to think about it, because I think as well as Les Mis worked out to the best of its abilities, it really ended up being a great vehicle for Anne Hathaway. And I think Hugh Jackman ended up kind of being like, oh yeah, he was good too. You know, but when you think of Les Mis, I think you think of Hathaway. The second reason I don't think this rumor is true is because Jackman's only 1 for 2 when it comes to Wolverine movies. So I don't know why Fox, I mean, I think you could offer the guy $50 million for 2 and he'd be just as happy, and you would have a good deal, and you wouldn't have to put so much money on the line. I mean, everyone's talking about how Hollywood is overspending and it's hurting their business model, so why would you overspend here? I don't think you would need to. So, because remember, X-Men Origins Wolverine, not a success. The Wolverine here, doing very well internationally. It's doing pretty well here in the US, but it still had a big drop. Also, Hugh Jackman, while he is kind of the Robert Downey Jr. of the X-Men franchise, you know how Robert Downey Jr. to the Avengers is so important, he doesn't bring in billion-dollar films. That's why Robert Downey Jr. gets the money that he does. Nobody knows what Robert Downey Jr. got for Avengers 2 and 3. He might very well have gotten $100 million. But anyway, I think that Jackman isn't guaranteed to bring in what it's worth to spend that money. And also, such a deal would also have to require some kind of gross participation. It's too big for someone who I feel, Jackman, who isn't reliable in delivering yet. The third reason is the route that this rumor took. It apparently came about in some kind of crazy mix between Cinema Blend and National Enquirer. I'm not quite sure where it started, but between those 2 publications. And then Slash Film picked it up, where I think it gained a little bit more legitimacy. However, that's where it stopped. And if this thing was more legitimate, you would be seeing it picked up in the industry trades and also the major entertainment magazines, because it's a major headline. So I think clearly it's just a very suspicious rumor, and I quite frankly think isn't true. If it was true, I would think Fox was overpaying. I would pay him much less. I'd pay him maybe $40 million for 4 more, $10 million a film, and then I'd be like, Hugh, I'll give you a major chunk of the gross participation as well. And I don't think that $10 million, I don't know if that would include his paydays as a producer either. But at this point, I just don't think he's worth it. All right, the second rumor is that Vin Diesel is going to voice Groot, which is like, those tree bugs, basically, that look like a branch. He's kind of like a giant, human-sized version of that in the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Do I think this rumor is true? Very possibly. Vin Diesel, as we all know, has been talking to Marvel. He's tweeted a little bit about Groot recently, or Facebooked, which is why this rumor took shape. It started out, everyone thought maybe he'd be the Vision. Now maybe everyone thinks he's going to voice Groot. And I think clearly Vin Diesel has a very distinctive voice, so that could be an interesting way to get him into the films. Do I think it's a good idea? No. If he's going to voice anybody, it should be Rocket Raccoon. For sure, hands down. And maybe because, Vin Diesel did send us on this wild goose chase with the Vision, maybe this is also, Groot is also a misdirect, and he knows he's leading down to the Rocket Raccoon announcement. I think he'd be an interesting choice for Rocket Raccoon. It might actually make me like the character a little bit more, and be more into it. But also at the same time, I think everybody here could agree Vin Diesel has such a strong fan base versus the Fast and Furious movies that not to use his face and just use his voice just seems weird. I think he's repetitive in the Guardians of the Galaxy movie because of Dave Bautista, who plays I forget the character's name. He's a green guy. He's like a muscle man. So if you're already going to have one bald muscle man in the movie, you don't need Vin Diesel. Go save him for something else. He's such a big marquee name, especially because the Fast and Furious franchises are so successful. I think this last film is like the second highest grossing film of the year, Fast and Furious 6 worldwide. It's amazing. It's over 700 million. So just to use the star of that's voice, I don't know, Marvel, that seems a little bit like a weird choice. But anyway, if he's going to voice anybody, my vote and my money would be on Rocket Raccoon. Because Groot doesn't even really speak, as far as I can recall. I think he says like one word occasionally, so I think Vin's just messing with us. So for the third story of the day, I want to talk about a movie that was the victim of the rumor mill, and many of those rumors turned out to be true, and that is World War Z. Everybody, including myself, was reporting on the debacle that this film became. As I pointed out when the movie was released, there was a fascinating article about it in Vanity Fair. Just Brad Pitt really went through the rigor on this. I think it was probably the most challenging film of his career because he produced it as well, and it was just such a mess and so expensive. But, you know, it's a happy ending story because it totally paid off for him. World War Z, having crossed the 500 million mark, is the most successful film of Brad Pitt's career. It is the highest grossing, and even though it probably still has not made money back, because don't forget, when you guys see the budget reported, that is the original budget. Nobody is adding on the reshoots, and it was rumored they spent another 200 million. They had double the budget to basically reshoot the last third of the film, and then also you're not including advertising. But a 500 million gross is nothing to turn your nose up at. I think it's really impressive. And I think that even though Paramount did not really make their money back and probably won't, maybe they will down the line, I think they have a good beginning of a franchise. And they just will know not to spend so much money on World War Z 2. And they'll know to get a better script at the beginning, hopefully. And, I think they can maybe churn out even more money for the second film. So that's fantastic. Brad Pitt, congrats for staying the course, gritting your teeth and bearing it, and coming out at the other end of the tunnel in all your semi-glory, because he still lost money for Paramount. All right, so the question of the day, it is from Paul Ray, and he says, "Hey Grace, I would like to know your opinion on something. It seems to be that with how popular TV shows have become, both in quality and numbers, and how both Spielberg and Lucas, and even Soderbergh has more access to success on TV, have spoken on how TV is much better to get projects done as opposed to movies. Do you feel that TV shows will become the new medium of entertainment to where artists would like to transition as opposed to movies?" Well, I think it never hurts to have a nice prestige television project. As a lot of actors and behind the talent say, directors and such, TV is a great gig. You don't have to work ridiculous hours on a time crunch. You get to basically work a 9-to-5 job. You get to so it's like working a regular job. You get to have a family life. And also, those paychecks are great, not only when the show airs, but it's up for syndication. There's DVD sales. And I think this new era of prestige television has really created, and it's an important distinction. Nobody wants to go and get a network show, really, as you might notice. Everybody wants the Mad Men or the Game of Thrones or the Boardwalk Empire. And it's a great way, I don't think it's no one on the top of their game is going to go to television, but it's a really good way to revive a career or to kind of like make something of yourself if you never quite made it in Hollywood, but you got enough juice so that if they put you on television, everyone's surprised you're doing TV. That's kind of, I think, the way it's turned out. But the real reason I wanted to answer this question is because I think it really brings up another good point. And I think that the reason that television is doing so well, prestige television, is because that's where there's quality writing these days. Television has the time to tell a really great story, but I don't think that's an excuse. Movies have been telling a really great story for decades, despite the apparent time limit that they're now very aware of. But that, I think, is what drives the quality television. I think that's what driving audiences to that television. And it's the writing, dummy. That's what I would say to Hollywood. It's the writing. And if they can't see that, that's why everyone's tuning into these television shows where you finish at 45 minutes and you just are like, or an hour on the pay services and like Homeland and stuff, and you're like, that was just so compelling and so well written. It paid off so well because the twists were well done. They were well orchestrated. They were built up really well. Breaking Bad, for instance, fantastically written show. So as much credit as the directors, as Paul mentioned, the directors and also actors get, I think a lot of talent needs to go to, a lot of credit needs to go to the writers of these television shows, like the Game of Thrones crew, and also Vince Gilligan, who, as I mentioned on a recent Morning Movie News, he's a free agent now, and he might jump to movies. And I said, DC Warner Brothers, pick that guy up. If you're considering Bryan Cranston for Lex Luthor, let's make it a package deal. All right, so that's today's morning movie news. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you'll check out these other videos right now.